Okay.
So Mehera-Meher, um, what page did you say, T? The author asked Mehera, did you ever, as a child, think about what your life would be like being married with children? You know, as children, we were quite different from children today, she answered. Children today are so aware. They understand what's going on around them. Our minds were not as sharp. I was just playful. I never listened to what the elders were saying, their conversations. I never thought about such things. Of course, when I was older, I did think I would have a house like this, a big one like her mother's, but nothing else. Did you ever imagine what your husband would look like? As a child, when I thought of who I would marry, I thought he should have fair skin, have nice curly hair, and in Baba, I got it all. He was so handsome. Mehera also commented, girls, when they are young, are very silly. As you grow up, you get more sense. I was very stupid and romantic too when I was young. One day I thought that if I had to marry and have children, I wanted them to be very beautiful. I always liked fair hair. Baba had fair hair, really like a girl's hair, and fair skin also. So I loved Baba dearly, though that love was not quite enough. It never is enough. We must go on loving him more and more. All the love that I had was all Baba's, but even that was not enough. Soon to come into contact with the divine beloved, Mehera had thus experienced many different situations and known many kinds of people, unusual for one so young. Born on a bare hillock in Sukur, she had traveled through the jungles with her family, visiting the ocean side and the towns of India with its kaleidoscope of races, classes, and religions. Born a Zoroastrian, Mehera had attended westernized Christian schools, one Roman Catholic and the other ecumenical, and had also learned the creeds and performed the rites of her own religion without being particularly attracted to any of it. Then into her life came the perfect master, Hazrat Babajan. Now her mother's search for solace that had begun with her husband's death would bring Mehera to her destined role as the beloved of the avatar of the age, Meher Baba. Is that Mehera's mom? Oh no, grandmother, Shireen. Hey, Baba hanging out in his relaxed and casual manner. Chapter 6, Murwanji. As stated earlier, Dowlet's sister, Franny Masi, one of Puna's beauties, had married for love and been bitterly disappointed. But like Dowlet, she too had a devout spiritual nature. Her own son, Faridun, would become one of Meher Baba's close mandali circle and be renamed Padri by him. Oh, interesting. So Padri is Mehera's cousin, I guess, huh? Huh. He was a good friend of Baba's younger brother, Jal, and it was Jal who first told Padri about Babajan. She's not an ordinary woman, Jal said. She is a saint. Padre, in turn, told his mother, and in 1921, Franny Masi began seeking the company of Babajan, to whom she became totally devoted. She visited Babajan daily and spent hours in her presence. At this time, Franny Masi's husband, Nauraj, had been forced to retire as a train driver due to failing eyesight, and the family's finances deteriorated further. Some Iranis cuttingly remarked that it served her right for marrying a Parsi. Franny Masi, who was unwell, eventually separated from her husband and began living alone in a small room opposite Babajan's seat under the neem tree. She went home for her meals, but otherwise spent the whole day with Babajan or resting in her room. The sidebar says, Nauraj worked for a short time at his brother-in-law's Ardashir and Dinshaw's business. Franny Masi became very intimate with Babajan. When Babajan finished her tea, Franny Masi would take the cup from her hand and perform other personal services. I always wondered what Babajan did to pee. You know, she drank so much tea. Where would she go to pee? Probably there was a tea shop or something next door, right?
Yeah, well, they have those Indian bathrooms. Have you been to India?
I have not.
They're just holes in the ground.
Oh boy.
Is this Franny Masi Mara's sister?
You know, I don't know at this point.
So everybody has the same names.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like us. John, George, Dick, Harry, Jessica, Jennifer, Tina. Tina's a very common name in America, right? In England.
Well, I don't know how common it is.
Franny Masi would take the cup from her hand and perform other personal services. Babajan was fond of Franny Masi too. For example, Babajan, who rarely left her seat, decided one day to go to Bund Gardens, which is on the other side of Pune, far away. But instead of taking a tonga, she started out walking. Her followers tried to coax her into a tonga, but Babajan was out of sorts that day and just turned, abused them, and kept on walking. Although she was old, she moved quickly. Franny Masi, following with the rest, found it hard to keep up. She told Babajan that she wanted to accompany her to Bun Gardens, but if she walked all that way, her feet would hurt. So why didn't both of them get in a tonga? For Franny Masi's sake, Babajan agreed. Meher Baba too visited Babajan daily, and there Franny Masi first met him. She told her sister Daulat about the magnetic Irani youth who found such favor in Babajan's eyes, and took Daulat to meet him. Since Baba always addressed Daulat respectfully as Daulat Mai, that is Mother Daulat, others too began calling her this. Franny Masi's oldest son, Rusi, 23, was a fair, handsome lad who had been a friend of Baba's in college. He had been studying medicine in Bombay with Colonel Irani's support. But Rusi wished to become an engineer. Babajan advised him to go to America, and Daulat Mai financed the trip. Once he left, however, he never returned to India. For a number of years, he wrote to his family. Franny Masi would write back, giving news of Baba and sending Baba buttons or badges. And then the letters stopped and they lost all trace of him. So the sidebar says, Rusi arrived in America on 2nd July 1920. He worked in New York City for a time and then attended and graduated from the Colorado School of Mines. By 1927, he was living in West Virginia, where he married a local girl. Ah, good for him. Later, he settled in Arkansas with his second wife. Back to the text, but then the letters stopped and they lost all trace of him. At another time, Franny Masi took Dowlett to see Baba at a meeting held at the home of one of Baba's early disciples, Sadashiv Patil, a Hindu. 35 or 40 people had gathered upstairs in a hall. Hardly any Zoroastrians were present, and only a few women. Bhajans, that is, devotional songs, were being sung when the two sisters arrived. Baba was chatting with his followers, and he spoke with Dalit Bhai and Franny Masi. After the program, most went downstairs while a handful of Mandalis stayed to tidy up the place. Baba happened to glance around and saw the two Zoroastrian women still there. He looked at Dalit Bhai and said, "Do you want to ask me something?" Dalit Bhai had never considered asking Baba anything. My, what is there to ask, she thought. She had not come with any questions, but if a master asks you to ask him something, there must be something, she thought to herself. Otherwise, why is Baba asking me? Suddenly it came to her that her daughter Perosia was unwell. So back to your question, Tina, that Franny is Dalit Bhai's sister.
Yeah, so she's
Figured that
the
out.
aunt of Mehera.
An aunt of Mehera, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly it came to her that her daughter Perosia was unwell. For a number of days, she had not had an appetite. So Dalit Bhai asked Baba what she should do about it. What line of treatment would help Perosia? Perhaps there was a diet she could follow, or maybe she should consult a doctor. Baba looked at Dalit Bhai for a moment and then said, "Take her to Udwada." Udwada, a small town along the western seaboard, north of Bombay, is the holiest place of pilgrimage in India for Zoroastrians. It is to the Parsis what Jerusalem is to the Jews, Mehera once explained, or Benares to the Hindus. Devotees travel to this place to offer a piece of sandalwood in the sacred fire of the largest and holiest fire temple in India. The fire itself was brought from Persia, a portion of the first sacred fire that Zoroaster started over 7,000 years ago. Baba himself had visited Udwada with 5 of his close friends soon after Babajan had kissed him. But going on a pilgrimage to Udwada was considered to some extent old-fashioned, something only the most traditional Zoroastrians did. Dalit Bhai wondered what good going there would do for her daughter's upset stomach. She did not voice her reservations, however, and only replied, "All right, Baba, I will take her." Dalit Bhai's respect for Baba had by now increased, and because of her sister, she realized the value of obeying the advice of a spiritual personality. Baba leaned back and looked at the others in the room for a while, and then he turned back to Dalit Bhai and again inquired, "Is there something else you wish to ask me?" Dalit Bhai was taken aback. She had nothing further in mind. But Baba gave her time to answer, and she thought hard. What could it be? There must be something. Then she remembered a Parsi woman, a Miss Todiwala, who was the daughter of a successful lawyer who lived on their street and for whom it was named. The Todiwalas stayed in Bombay for most of the year, but came to Pune during the racing season. Do they still have horse racing in Pune?
I don't know.
Oh. Their house was near Dalit Mai's, and she often visited with the mother in the evenings. The Todiwalas had many children, all of whom were married, except for the oldest, who was now a woman nearing 40. She had received no offer of marriage, and there was no prospect of it either. One day, Miss Todiwala, feeling sorry for herself, had opened her heart to Dalit Mai. Nothing was being done about her situation, and she was worried. Her sisters and brothers were all married, and one of her sisters even had a child, but not her. Her elderly parents were still alive, but Miss Todiwala wondered, after they die, what will happen to me? I won't have a home for myself, and I'll end up a spinster. It came to Dalit Mai now to tell Baba about this woman. And when she did so, Baba said, take her to Udwada also. Again, Dalit Mai looked at Baba, wondering how it would help to take Miss Todiwala, who needed a husband, to a remote religious place like Udwada. Baba, being a spiritual master, must have some reason, she thought. Though new to Baba, Dalit Mai had love and faith in him. It was her first test in obedience, and she resolved to go immediately. When she came home, she did not tell Mehera and Piroja what had transpired with Baba. She simply told them to pack for a trip. They were going someplace new, someplace they had never been before, Udwada. The girls were pleased. Udwada was by the sea and would be a nice change. There would be good food, fresh fish every day, and it was always fun to ride on the train. Dalit Mai went to Miss Todiwala, told her of their travel plans, and asked, wouldn't you like to go with us? We can travel together for a pilgrimage. Miss Todiwala had been to Udwada before, but not for some years, and she agreed to go. Dalit Mai did not tell her anything about Meher Baba, reasoning correctly that she would not understand or have conviction about him. So off they went, Dalit Mai, Piroja, Mehera, and a middle-aged Parsi woman. Funny, in those days, 40 was called middle-aged.
I know.
Now it's young. They traveled first to Bombay and then 4 or 5 hours more in the train. When they got to Udwada, the first 2 days they took in all the sights. They offered sandalwood to the sacred fire, performed the sacred thread, and toured the fire temple. But they also went to the beach and had a dip in the ocean. Piroja started feeling better. She regained her appetite and looked robust. She did not feel depressed anymore, and in general, her health improved. After staying 4 days, they returned to Pune. Dalit Mai now realized that it was not the place that had made Piroja well, it was obeying Meher Baba's order. But what about Miss Todiwala? Dalit Mai, being kind-hearted, was still concerned about her. Only a month or so later, word reached them that Miss Todiwala had received an offer of marriage, had accepted, and was now married. For Dalit Mai, it was a miracle. From that time on, she had real love for Baba and additional faith in him to obey his every word. As it turned out, not only had Miss Todiwala been suffering for want of a husband, so was Piroja. She revealed later that the reason she had not been eating properly was that she had given up fish and meat, hoping that this penance would procure her a suitable marriage proposal. Her wish, too, would soon be fulfilled. How are your eyes, T? Can
I'll
you
give
read?
it a
Or
try.
oh, all right.
During January 1922, Meher Baba concluded a 6-month stay at Sakori when the perfect master Upasni Maharaj saluted him, declaring, "You are Adi Shakti, primal force, you are the avatar." Previously, Maharaj had predicted Baba would open a college of divine knowledge immediately after leaving Sakori. Baba established himself in a thatched hut on Ferguson College Road near the school. This hut became known as Pune Jopti. While staying in the Pune Jopti, Daulat Mai and Frani Masi occasionally visited him there, but Mehera and Paroja had not yet met Meher Baba and never saw him in the hut. Paroja was still living at home and Mehera was still a student at St. Helena's. From Baba, Daulat Mai and Frani Masi heard about Upasni Maharaj's ashram in Sakori. They visited there a few times to pay their respects to Maharaj. Frani Masi was not drawn to Maharaj, as drawn to Maharaj as she was to Baba Jan, and remained devoted to her. But Daulat Mai liked the devotional life in Sakori. In October 1922, she decided to take her daughters there so that they too might be influenced by its spiritual atmosphere. "Come with me and see this place, children," she coaxed them. "You will like it very much. There are young Brahmin girls there who sing songs. It is lovely there. Wouldn't you like to go?" She did not explain anything about Upasni Maharaj being a perfect master, since she felt they were too young to understand. "My mother didn't know how to explain to us about spiritual things," Mehera remarked later. "She just took us there thinking we would imbibe the atmosphere and understand things by ourselves, and it did happen that way. My sister and I said, 'All right, we'll have a nice outing in the train. It will be fun.' We were in Pune all the time. Once, only once, only once in a while would Mother take us to Bombay. This was a chance to see a new place during my Diwali holiday from school and ride the train." Um, it's a little difficult. In 1922, the fashion for young girls was for dresses to hang only to the knee, and Daulat Mai did not like that style much. She considered it more respectable to wear a sari. So the girls had to become used to wearing saris from an early age. In Sakari, Daulat Mai noticed that all the Brahmin girls wore saris, and she realized that if her daughters wore frocks, they would look different and not be able to mix well. So before they left, she told the girls they had to wear saris. Mehera did not mind. When one is very young, one likes to wear a sari, and the saris were made of silk. They left from Pune, but at dawn they had to change trains and board a second-class compartment about 8 p.m. In those days of British rules, even second-class compartments were kept clean. But Mother started to worry because we were three women alone. She was afraid of thieves. She was standing on the platform near the doorway, full of worry, when a British officer dressed in khaki boarded the train. He came and asked Mother if he could board this compartment. She was relieved and glad to have a gentleman in her compartment. When he asked where we were going, and Paroja replied, towards Manmad. Mother and he talked all night. It was good that I was wearing a sari, because when I turned my back to them and covered my head, I couldn't do without sleep. Uh, when we got to Chitali near Sikori, it was still dark, and it was a very small station, and the train doesn't stop long at small stations. Mother was hurrying to get down. The officer wouldn't let us go. "But this is not Mahmud, madam," he said. When Mother explained this was our destination, the gentleman helped us with our bedding and mattresses. It was as if God had sent him. It was 1 a.m. now, and we were the only ones to get down from the train. The porter carried our bags and bedding to the ticket collector's cabin, and Mother told us to wait by the office window. We sat on a bench by the window where it was light, while Mother went out of the station to look for a tonga. She roused the tongawala, who harnessed his horse. We sat inside the tonga and rode 8 miles to Sikori, half sleeping and dozing along the way. At last, about 5:30 a.m. or so, we arrived. My aunt Franny Masi was staying in Sikori and had been told to expect us. There were several rooms in a row. Mother told me to knock on a certain door, and our aunt greeted us. We all went to rest. In the morning, we got up to wash and have breakfast. It was Sunday, 15th October, 1922. And Meher Baba also arrived in Sikori that morning with Sadashiv Patel. It was Baba's third visit to Sikori since Upasni Maharaj had proclaimed him the avatar in January. It would be his last for 30 years. Baba was now living in Bombay in Manzili Meem, his first ashram. Where he had begun training his disciples. One of the projects that occupied the disciples was writing a biography of Upasni Maharaj in 3 different language versions. In July, Baba had come to Sikori for 4 days with one of his disciples to personally research the facts about Maharaj's life. Want to take over? Eugene?
Sorry, I was muted. But the reason for Baba's visit to Sikori this time was to see Mehera and to let her see him, to confirm her as the one chosen to be the female counterpart of the avatar. Such a woman holds the highest position in the avatar's inner circle. As Sita was to Ram, as Radha was to Krishna, And as Mary was to Jesus, so would Mehera be to Meher Baba. When Mehera and Paroja stepped out of their room that morning, Daulat Mai told them to go to the temple, where the other girls would show them around. Mother told us to mix with the Brahmin girls, said Mehera, but we didn't know where to go. Shyly holding each other's hand, we started walking from our room. There was no veranda in front of their rooms, only a paved driveway. And they followed that to a dirt road. We didn't see any temple, but we saw a lovely big arch with nice steps. The perfect master Kabirji's sayings, I think, were written over it. We climbed up the steps. This looked like an important place. We went in through the arch to an open flagstone courtyard, but we didn't know where to go next. We stood in the courtyard, which was open to the sky. A narrow balcony surrounded it, with rooms on three sides. We looked inside the entrance to the temple, where there were arches and a porch. And from afar, we saw a Brahmin girl. The girl saw us too and was happy to see some Parsis, Zoroastrians, as many Hindus came to Sikori in those days, but not many Parsis. She came running towards us, smiled, and asked us from where we came and what were our names. Her name was Gangi, or Gangu, as she was called. She was Upasni Maharaj's niece, his sister's daughter. She was fair complexioned and very sweet. We told her that we wanted to see the Mandir temple, and she said, "It's here, I'll show you." We began walking towards the temple and stepped inside a large room, half shut, with green wooden lattice work. We hadn't yet reached the temple or even seen photos of Sai Baba or Upasni Maharaj when Gangu heard footsteps coming down the wooden staircase outside in the courtyard. We didn't hear them, but the girl said, wait, this is Merwanji, Maharaj's chief disciple. You must come outside and see Merwanji. Although his close followers were now calling him Meher Baba, he was always called Merwanji in Sikori. Mehera's mother had told her nothing about Baba, and when she first heard the name Merwanji, Mehera expected to see a much older person, since the suffix G is used as a form of respect. But Baba was 28 at the time, Mehera was only 15. Mehera, Paroja, and Gangu rushed outside and stood in the entrance of the superstructure near the door. Baba came down the wooden stairs very quickly, and again Gangu whispered, "This is Merwanji. He is a very important disciple of Maharaj. Maharaj has given him realization." We didn't know what she was talking about. We were so ignorant. We didn't know what God realization was. Well, join the club, Mehera. We didn't see him come down the steps, but only saw him when he turned. He was walking very fast. We only saw his profile as he passed us. By the time he looked up, he was looking straight ahead. He had tied a scarf, a Persian, is that kerchief or handkerchief around his head. His hair was short, not too long and matted. His hair was short, not too long and matted. Baba started growing out his hair at Manzalimim. His mustache too was very big. He wore a short white perin. That's a loose shirt. Open, half opened. White, white pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, the problem of the text is obliterated on the left side. I don't know why. And the colored band on his head. So I saw Baba for the first time from the side as he strode quickly past us. He was fair, but I didn't see his eyes or their expression as he was looking straight ahead. His face and body were very thin because he had been fasting. One aspect of Mara's first glimpse of her beloved particularly pleased
Pleased her significantly.
Oh, thank you. Significantly, even though we had gone to Sikori to meet Upasni Maharaj, we saw Baba first. We didn't even see Maharaj's photos kept in the temple, but first Mayor Baba in physical form. And the sidebar here says, Baba was so thin during the Manzil Imam time, Mara said, that his stomach and back nearly touched.
Mm.
After this first glimpse, Gangu showed the girls the small temple, only big enough for one person at a time to do puja, devotions. Mara remembered that there were two large photographs, one of Upasni Maharaj and one of Sai Baba, and an altar with silver items on it. Gangu told them that arti and worship ceremonies were held there, and that the next arti would take place at 12 noon. Not knowing what time it was, the girls returned to their rooms, where Franny Masi and Dalit Mai, who had been there before and knew the schedule, were waiting. As soon as the girls got there, a bell began ringing, which meant that it was already noon and arti was beginning. The older women told the girls to come quickly. So they went back to the temple again. After worship, attended by many Brahmins and a few Parsi women, prasad, an eatable from the master, was distributed. And then Dalit Mai said, now we have to go to Maharaj's hut. They followed the group, men leading, down a narrow, well-made path to Maharaj's hut, which was in an ancient mango orchard with some newly planted trees. A barbed wire fence surrounded the orchard, forming a compound so that the animals could not get in to graze, with a handmade rustic wooden gate through which people could pass two at a time. Maharaj's hut was made of mud, Mara recalled. And I'll read the sidebar now. Dina Talati, one of Meher Baba's early followers, was among the Zoroastrian women Mara saw in the temple that day in Sikori. Maharaj's hut was made of mud. It had a thatched roof and was primitive and simple. The men went in first, 2 by 2. They sat on one side, and then the women came in and sat on the other side. A tiny window was in front of Maharaj, so he could see who was coming from the gate. Maharaj was seated on the floor on a gunny sack and wearing one also, with another gunny sack rolled behind his back for a cushion as he looked around. He had met my mother before and asked her, when did you come? How was your journey? He asked my sister her name and she answered. What was my name? He asked. Mehera, I replied. Maharaj said, Mehera is a name that the Brahmin girls won't be able to pronounce. It will be difficult for them to say it. What's so hard about Mehera? From today, your name is Mira. Mehera did not know the story of Saint Mira then, but later on she heard it, and it had a peculiar application to her own life. Mirabai was a 16th century Hindu princess born at a time of political turmoil when petty kingdoms were being carved from the ruins of the Afghan Empire. Isn't that interesting? That's interesting. Afghanistan was once an empire.
Mm.
Disgusted by the cruelty, greed, and hypocrisy she saw all around her, Mira devoted herself to a cult of Krishna, which promoted love, mercy, and tolerance. Married to a royal prince, she was widowed and ordered to commit sati, ritual suicide, by the ruling king, who was embarrassed that one of the royal family should consort with holy men, dressed mostly like beggars in rags. Mira replied that she was married to Krishna, Lord of the universe, and would not. The king tried to torture and kill her in many ways, but Mira's love for Krishna always saved her. Driven into exile, she said, "If Rana, king, is angry, his own kingdom will give me shelter. But if God is angry, where can I go?" She went on a pilgrimage to holy places and subsequently spent most of her life in a temple, writing religious commentary and poetry. Mirabai sought no worldly comforts or happiness. Her only object was to please her beloved, to whom she surrendered her body, mind, and soul. She sought union with her God, and when she was realized, even the royal family came to her and bowed down in respect. So it was no accident that Upasni Maharaj picked this to be Mehera's name at Sakori. When she heard it, Mehera, who was very shy, just bowed her head and said, "Yes, Maharaj." But she liked the name Mira. Sakori was a new place and she was a stranger, but now she had a new name. Maharaj talked a while, told a humorous story, and then he smiled and looked out the window. The men looked too and reported that Merwanji was coming. Maharaj said, "Yes, I am waiting for him. I have called him." Mehera noted that Baba came to the steps, touched them, and bowed at the threshold. He entered with his hands joined. When he stepped in front of Maharaj, she looked up slowly, but still she did not see his eyes. Maharaj said, "Ah, Merwan, you've come. I was waiting for you. Go and wait for me under the mango tree. I'll come in a few minutes after these Bhakta Mandali devotees depart." Baba again bowed and stepping backwards went out without turning, went out without turning his back, again bowing at the threshold. He sat down under a very large old mango tree nearby. Maharaj told the men to leave quickly, and they and the women had darshan, that is, bowed at the master's feet, and left. When Mehera came out of the door, she saw Baba sitting in the shade of the mango tree, one leg up, his hand resting on his knee, deep in his own thoughts. It was cool and bucolic in the master's compound. There was a well nearby. With the other women, Mehera walked around the hut, circumambulating the master's seat, as is the Hindu custom. When they came to the front of the hut again, she could still see Baba. As the women walked as slowly as they could toward the handmade gate, they turned so they could keep their eyes on him, waiting to see how Upasni Maharaj would greet the young Irani. At last, they saw Maharaj emerge from the hut, one hand holding up his gunny sack, which was all that he ever wore. Hands on his hips, Maharaj surveyed the compound to see that all were leaving and were near the gate. Satisfied, he went towards Baba and sat in front of him. The last thing I saw was the two of them seated facing each other. The second time was inside Maharaj's hut, and the third time was under the mango tree. The women went back to their rooms and had something to eat. As they sat inside, finishing their lunch, they talked about the events that morning and chatted about what Maharaj had said. Then they heard sounds outside, the jingle of a Tonga's bells. Soon they heard the commotion of people hurrying. There were footsteps and noise, people talking loudly. They got up to look and saw the Tonga parked almost directly in front of their room, which was at the end of a long lane. In the commotion, they saw Baba walking swiftly as 20 or so women, both Brahmins and Parsis, rushed to follow him. Nimbly, Baba jumped into the Tonga and snapped his fingers to the Tongawala to leave. But by the time the man got his horse going, the young women had caught up with him and were taking darshan by touching Baba's feet, which was resting on the footrest of the Tonga. Because it was his master's ashram and Maharaj himself was in residence, Baba did not wish to be bowed to. We were so stupid, said Mehera. We stood from afar and watched. We did not have the sense to go and take darshan. Anyway, we were very shy also. I can still see Baba waving them away, motioning. No, no, don't. But the women were bowing to his feet, pushing each other out of the way as they clamored to touch him, and running after the Tonga in their long saris as it began to move.
Hmm. Do you want to go on?
Yeah, we have another 5 minutes. I could read another page.
Okay.
Or how are your eyes? Have they recovered?
It's just a little hard for me unless I sit up very close.
No, no problem. I can read another page. It was not in our destiny to have Baba's darshan at Sakori. It had to be first at Meherabad. That is why we did not think to run after his carriage. It was the final day of Meher Baba's contact with Upasni Maharaj in Sakori. Baba never again went to Sakori while Maharaj was alive, and he only met him once more 19 years later in 1941 in Dahigaon. The author asked Mehera how she felt when she first saw Baba, and she replied, I didn't stare at his face. I was very shy. I loved Baba in the way one loves a perfect master. Later, I saw him properly. His hands were lovely. His eyes were beautiful. But Paroja was not as drawn to him. Her first impression of Meher Baba was typical of most of the Zoroastrian community then. I thought he was different, not normal, rather strange, almost a madman.
Hmm. He does look a little crazy.
A little, but also he's quite a babe.
He's intense.
He's intense, yeah.
Mhm.
apparently that previous picture we just saw was when he'd come back um, to Pune, I think, or to Bombay, I guess,
Mm.
after a long hike. And Bailey asked him, "Why don't you take a bath first before the picture and change your clothes? And you look like a tramp." And Baba just laughed and said, "In the future, millions will look at
Mm.
my picture."
So this is Gulmai and Khorshid Irani, who is Goher's mother, and some other people too. Pilamai Rustam, Pilamai Frani Dalatmai. I think maybe we'll just end a few minutes early because uh,
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
this is now a new chapter. This is 71.
Great.
I'm going to write it down. '71.
Do you like movies that are comedies?
Sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah. You want a recommendation?
Sure.
The movie Trainwreck. So funny.
Is that on Netflix?
Probably.
Trainwreck.
Yeah. It's I think her name is, well, I forget her name. The Amy, is there an Amy Schumer?
Yeah,
Oh, and is she a comic?
she is.
Yeah. Oh, so it is Amy Schumer and Bill Hader,
Mm-hmm.
and LeBron James is in it.
Is it
Um,
a new movie?
I think it's about a year old or something.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
check it out.
I, I, I saw it. I saw the DVD picture last year when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just thought, oh, this movie's not for me because it was a picture of Amy Schumer with a, bottle of alcohol in her
Mm-hmm.
in her hand and sort of scowling. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a bummer,
Mm-hmm.
or a downer kind of. But then a friend of mine, her mother is called Matilda, and I remembered the English actress Tilda Swinton, I think is her name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I thought I'll look up Tilda Swinton um, on Google, and Google said that she too is in that movie, Trainwreck. So I ended up getting it from the library and watching it. Man, I'm so glad I did because I laughed, like really, belly laughs. Really, it's really funny.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. You'll
Deb,
like it if you like comedy. Yeah.
Deb is saying, I would like to hear more of the Indian guzzles Baba listened to. As I recall, some of these singers were mentioned in Lord Meher. Maybe someone like Michael Siegel would know. Well, I hate Indian guzzles. It's like very hard for me to listen to.
Yeah, you either like them or you don't. I think, I mean, I suppose there's some in between, but most Westerners, um, don't have, we don't have much appreciation for Indian music.
I
Um,
despise it.
yeah. How
It-
about the instrumental stuff like Ravi Shankar or
Not really.
not really. See, you don't have you don't have that liking. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But
you got the library list of the songs Baba listened to?
I did. Thank you very much. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
I like what's his name? That um, Paul Robeson.
oh, yeah. Some of
Great
these
book.
things were very unusual, like the Umbrella Man.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll have to listen to that.
Papa
I
Loves.
wasn't. Um,
Anyway, we'll see you next week. I don't know where everyone was today.
yeah, they probably just got out of the habit, because of the 2 week break that we had. Yeah,
Mhm.
I liked that in that list of Baba songs that you sent. I liked the very last one. Hawaiian music was
Oh,
represented.
yeah, that was nice.
You know,
Yeah.
there's an awesome Hawaiian singer, Gabby Pahinui. Gabby Pahinui. Um, he'll be on YouTube. Um, he's passed away now too, but what a tender voice he has. You should check him out. I'll send you a link so
Oh,
you'll be
okay.
able to
Thank you.
remember. Yeah,
And
yeah.
let me know if you have any problems listening to any of those songs. Have you listened to the whole
I,
thing?
no, I haven't. I only listened to a couple of the Paul Robeson songs so far.
Well, some of them have ads on them, and I don't know how to get rid of them.
You can't.
Mm.
Those you know I think I think they put ads on any video that gets a lot of views.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll just answer her that I don't like that kind of music, and so she'll have to look into that on her own.
Sure, yeah,
All right, well, I'll see you next week, Eugene.
sure. That boy that she mentioned, somebody Siegel. Do you know him? Because I
Yeah.
don't know him at all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he plays the sitar.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I love sitar. I'm amazed that you and other people, don't care for it. So it's so pretty.
I don't know. I just don't like it. What can I say? I'm a West.
Maybe in your previous life you were an Indian and you were forced to take music lessons that you didn't want,
Yeah, maybe.
and,
But
and you're like completely turned off now. Okay, my love. Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah.
okay. Bye bye, Eugene. Thank you.
Bye bye, T.